As we bow our heads to pray, may each of us thank our Creator for the privilege of living in and serving our community. We ask for wisdom and guidance in any and all decisions. We also ask for protection of the members of our armed forces, pray for their safe return, and give strength to their loved ones. These we ask in thy name. Amen.
Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And clerk, can you please call the roll?
Chair Mayor Patrick T. Riley is excused. Vice Chair, Acting Chair Steve Rivet.
Here.
Council members Grant Ball.
Here.
Laura Mahoney.
Here.
Dick Horn.
Here.
Danny White.
Here.
Town Administrator Douglas Hoyt.
Here.
Town Attorney Carl Bone.
Here.
I'm the Town Clerk Treasurer Debbie Franklin, and for the record, the Malabar Fire Chief Mike Foley is also present.
All right, thank you. Do we have any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed to the consent agenda. There is one change to that. The town council meetings of January 3rd are not included, so the consent agenda only includes approval of the workshop meeting minutes from 1/22. Okay? We have a motion to approve.
So
Second. Okay, any discussion?
I have one thing to discuss.
Okay.
The concern on lower half, the town of Malabar will never require or mandate hookup to water or sewer by any property owner, as the town does not own those rights. So it was more of a concern that the city of Palm Bay would require us to pay because they're the ones that hook up. I think it was a vague, I'm not sure exactly what it was stated, but I don't think we were worried about the town of Malabar charging us, right, at the workshop? We were concerned
I'm
about,
not sure exactly.
we were
what you're saying.
concerned about
That there
the,
would be a fee from the water provider,
yeah,
which is Palm Bay.
right.
Okay.
So just to change that to or, yeah, that the concern is Palm Bay.
Okay.
Well, the water provider could be a private provider as well, so, I mean,
Well, we
if I
could put-
summarize what the concern was for Malabar, that I'll remove the word Malabar, but it's not just Palm Bay, it could be a private provider as well. Mr. Paladin said he would not charge, or not require a charge, but, you know, he's a private provider, or would have been.
Yeah, I thought what we were concerned about was that people that didn't want to hook up to the water utility would be forced to.
Exactly.
And that was not, that couldn't happen.
And
Am I
that
correct
didn't
there?
have, that was the emphasis, it wasn't
Yes.
on.
It doesn't matter who you call them.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Well, but it does state in the minutes that it is the town of Malabar wouldn't require, so.
Mr. Chairman, don't you remember several years ago when this first came up, a representative of the city of Palm Bay came and said that he wouldn't require that either. Now, people change.
Well, right, that was put into the sale agreement, so. Now, I think what Laura's saying is that's just misstated.
It's just misstated.
It's being
I think
unnecessarily specific is what
You
you're saying.
can
No,
just
it doesn't need to say Malabar.
make it more
Well-
vague, just make it not the town of Malabar.
Well, and, you know, what was actually said is what's important, so.
Right.
I mean, if it was wrong, okay, if something wrong was said, but the minute should reflect what was said.
Right,
Not
right, I
reflect
agree,
it
yeah.
after the fact.
I agree.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, call for the question. All in favor of approval of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, consent agenda is approved. All right, we'll move along to the attorney report. Mr. Mullen.
Thank you. Two things. As you may recall, we adopted medical marijuana regulations prior to the state implementing Senate Bill 8A concerning the state's effort to try and come up with rules relating to medical marijuana facilities.
we put a moratorium on any medical marijuana facilities. And I think, Debbie, if I'm correct, it expires next month?
Correct.
Okay. Now, we got a couple of things we need to consider, or three things that we need to consider. I'll tell you right now, even though our medical marijuana regulations predated the statute, they do not, if we were to adopt them today, they do not comply with the state statute. But there's still some argument that we predated the state, so our regulations would stay in effect. All right, so we can do nothing and leave them and take the chance. The other thing we can do is, if we want to change the ordinance to comply with the state statute, we can do so. However, our regulations, whether it be from a zoning perspective, land use perspective, or day-to-day operation perspective, our regulations of medical marijuana facilities have to be consistent with and exactly the same type of regulations we impose on pharmacies. We regulate pharmacies a bit, but not, not to the extent we regulate medical marijuana facilities in our old ordinance. So we could do that. So number one, leave what we have. Number two, amend the ordinance to comply with the state statute and regulate them like we regulate pharmacies. Or three, Senate Bill 8A allows us to specifically disallow medical marijuana facilities in the town. The trend in the county right now is to, at least with the municipalities I'm familiar with, is to ban them from the municipality. Satellite Beach does allow them. Rockledge was or is in the process of allowing them. Cocoa Beach has already approved one, a facility. Melbourne is in the process of banning them. Palm Bay has a moratorium. Harbor Beach bans them. Palm Shores bans them. And I don't recall the rest of them, what they do. But the statute specifically allows us to ban the facilities. That doesn't mean doctors can't prescribe it. Qualified doctor can still prescribe it. That doesn't mean that a Malabar resident who gets a prescription cannot have it delivered here. It just cannot be dispensed from the town. We have the ability to ban the dispensaries. So we need to figure out what we're going to do here. I think it's problematic for us to try and go back and regulate like we do pharmacies, because we're going to have to change the rules for pharmacies in order to adequately regulate medical marijuana facilities. If we don't, then basically medical marijuana facilities will be allowed in the same zoning category as pharmacies. And with hardly any other regulations, because we don't have it. So, I need some guidance here, staff needs guidance, what the council wants to do.
Okay.
If I hear you right, if it is the will of this council representing the people of Malabar to not want medical marijuana dispensed within the town, then your third option is probably the simplest and most complete in compliance with the state. So I would say if that's what we want, we ought to authorize you to develop an ordinance stating just that. Now, you said Palm Bay did what?
I believe Palm Bay has a moratorium right now.
There's a facility at the corner of Malabar Road,
Okay.
or something just the side of that dock street.
Okay, that's a doctor, not a dispensary.
Is that a doctor?
If he's prescribing, that dispensary is completely different. Doctors,
Well, we need to make sure that distinction is clear.
well, it will be by definition
I
under
saw
the
it after a
statute.
10-hour drive today, so,
I mean, by definition under the statute, dispensary is one that dispenses, it's not one that prescribes.
I personally like the third choice. I don't know if that's the will of the council or not.
It's a fairly simple ordinance. I would repeal what we have and just basically adopt a land use regulation that bans the medical marijuana dispensaries from the town.
Anyone else?
I would probably vote against the ban. Now, I take it the ballot measure won by a supermajority.
It's almost 70%.
Yeah, I would call that a supermajority.
Yeah.
So again, representing the town of Malabar, it's a secret ballot. I don't know how many people in Malabar voted for or against this, okay? And so, in that regard, you know, I'm for going with the will of the people, and they express that will in that ballot measure. So,
And again, I want to make it very, very clear, it's not anti-medical marijuana, it's just the dispensary.
yeah.
That's it. Again, it can still be delivered here, it still can be used here, it still can be prescribed here, it's the dispensary. So I just want to make that extremely clear.
And I understand that.
Okay, thank you.
But I've also come from Texas where we had dry counties too,
Yeah.
and all the stores were on the other side of the county line.
Just right across the street. Right.
Okay, so. That's my
Work into Georgia.
I got the
Yeah.
text.
I kind of share the same concern, that it's the will of the people to allow it to happen, but that puts a big burden on us to figure out how we're gonna make it happen. And the easy road, I understand, is to say, well, the easy road is to say no, if that's an option. But I don't know that are we expected to make a decision on this tonight, or can we get?
No, I don't think we need to make a decision tonight, but I want to let you know our moratorium is going to expire, okay? What that means is that our regulations would be the ones that are in place, and then there becomes an argument whether or not our regulations are valid, because, again, they predated Senate Bill 8A. And Senate Bill 8A says no municipality shall adopt. It doesn't say anything about retroactive regulations that were in place. It says thou shalt not adopt, which to me means from this point forward. All right, we can leave what we have in place, which are very restrictive, more restrictive than Senate Bill 8A would allow if we adopted them today.
And that's if we do nothing.
If we do
That's
not.
what
That would be what's in place.
More restrictive than what was suggested in your third proposal?
The third proposal meeting banning them?
No, banning only the dispensary.
Yeah, because we go beyond dispensaries.
No, I don't think we should go beyond dispensaries.
I mean, we.
People are, if it's prescribed to somebody and they want to take it in Malabar, they should be allowed to.
Yeah, I won't say it goes that far, but it certainly goes into the potential of regulating the prescribing of it.
I'd like to see this on the agenda and advertise to the public, so we can hopefully get some input back to us to make this decision.
Not a problem.
Because I'm stuck between the two decisions that we've heard right now.
And I can detail it more thoroughly for you in whatever documentation that we need, and I can get that together, that's not a problem, okay? Let me first, before you spend the money on me doing that, contact City of Indian Harbor Beach and ask for all the information that Mark Ryan developed on this,
Okay.
because he did a really good job. Because, I mean, that's hours of work you don't have to spend on me, okay? So
Thank you.
do that first. And you know, that's helpful information, because he does a chart of who did what. Now, the other one thing we might need to figure out is the vote percentage in Malabar. I think it was high 60s that approved.
I think that's what's in the ordinance.
Okay, yeah,
It's
so
gave the statistics.
70% countywide, and Malabar was
High
pretty
60s.
high, was right up there with the trend to approve medical marijuana as a concept.
Yeah, I'd like to see, I agree with Grant, what the public says, because I've been to several planning and zoning meetings, and I know that the talk was more about growing marijuana, not dispensaries. So I don't think the public exactly what they voted on, you know, I'm not sure if their voting meant that they want to be able to be allowed to take it, or if they would really like marijuana to be a dispensary. And so maybe a detail of what that means, a dispensary, because if everybody knows that they can be prescribed, they probably are okay, but we need to hear from the public.
You know, Malabar has, you know, the Babcock frontage and the US 1 frontage. It may be palatable to put one. But again, if Palm Bay has put one up, it's there. It's available.
Okay.
The dispensing of this, just for clarification, it has nothing to do with growing.
Right, I
Right.
realize
It's a
that.
whole separate.
That's why since the discussion, since that tended to be the discussion that people were stating, I think that the misconception might be,
Well, I
Need to
haven't
be-
talked to anybody that has a misconception. They're basically talking about a facility that
A
dispenses
dispensary.
marijuana.
okay,
Where does the dispensary
March
get it?
5th?
The big,
Agenda?
one of those large farms that.
March-
Yeah, but that
Yeah.
is next
Is
week.
that
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, no problem, we'll get it done. Second thing, I haven't been here in a while, so I gotta say something. I'll preface this by saying, you know, no good deed goes unpunished. 2014, there was a single car accident at 2885 Weber Road, and that accident damaged a culvert pipe and driveway, which by our code and by all provisions of our code is the responsibility of the owner of the property. Okay, and you put that culvert in for your driveway, that's your responsibility. Well, for some reason, and Debbie and I, well, Debbie, we need to research this, but for some reason, the town got the insurance check and hired CDM to fix that culvert. Okay? Fast forward now to 2017. A visitor of the property owner was bringing in some garbage cans and allegedly, according to what we know, damaged her leg or foot by falling in a hole in the culvert. Okay? Now, we received a letter from the injured party's attorneys demanding insurance information. We have to give it to them. That's just normal protocol. So I'm just here to inform you that it looks like a claim is going to be made for those injuries on a culvert pipe that we didn't have the obligation to fix, but we did. Okay? Interestingly enough, they sent a letter to Brevard County Risk Management, Brevard County Board of Commissioners, Florida Department of Financial Services, doesn't matter, Town of Malabar, the town engineer, Brevard County Public Works, and those are the main entities that they're demanding insurance from. I mean, it might all be that at the end, and we don't have any responsibility, but the fact of the matter is that they're demanding our insurance information, and we have an obligation to provide it, and we're going to do so. And then go from there.
You said Malabar Road, are you not?
Weber.
2884, yeah.
Weber.
And the reason the check was paid to Malabar from the insurance company is that was considered Malabar property.
The right-of-way is.
Right away is, and that's where the couple doors down from my house, I know the incident. And then there were two other problems with the holes. One was trash collector using the claw to pick up yard trash, dug a hole, and that's on one side of the culvert. The other side of the culvert was a washout. Whether the responsibility goes or not, but it is town property, so I do believe that we probably are responsible.
Well, but by code, that culvert and driveway is the homeowner's responsibility.
But we hired, I forget the name of the company, to do the repairs there.
I agree.
That makes it ours.
No, I agree, that's at least what the thought is on that, but we had no obligation to do that.
But isn't this a potential lawsuit?
Yeah.
So,
It's they're demanding our information, and, you know, in probably a year or so, if it doesn't settle, they'll sue, and then we'll go from there. I'm just informing you guys of what's going on.
Okay, so What would have been the proper procedure? It sounds like the insurance company mistakenly sent a check to us when it should have been sent to the homeowner.
No, I don't think that that was the case. I think the insurance company would only send it to us
Yes.
Because we were the insured party,
because we were the owner of the right of way.
because of the right.
So, but other than that, you know, I know no other details, and we probably don't need to go into detail about liability, responsibility, or anything like that. I'm just letting you know that there's potentially a claim that's gonna be made.
Okay, so in your opinion, is there anything the town did wrong? I mean, if it's the homeowner's responsibility to fix the culvert, then the homeowner should have fixed it.
It has to be fixed, okay?
Right.
And, you know, if the homeowner doesn't fix it, and we have a damaged culvert, which affects drainage, which affects access and all that stuff. For the benefit of the health, safety, and welfare of the public, we probably need to do something. Or else we'll be going to code enforcement and just piling up $250 a day fines, and it still doesn't fix the problem.
Okay.
Right?
And-
But, you know, moving forward, you know, it should definitely be incumbent upon the responsible party, in this case the homeowner, to fix it. And we need to maybe do a better job next time. I don't know. I don't know what we did wrong. I don't think we did anything wrong under the circumstances, but, you know, we needed to get it done, and my recollection was the insurance company was just dilly-dallying and wouldn't give, I think it was Mrs. Foster, if I'm not mistaken, wouldn't give them the check, had to give it to us, and so that's what we did.
The repair work took a long time to get started even. I do remember the issue very well. Now, may I ask you
Excuse me,
this?
Dick, I guess it's Laura asked you after.
Well, he may be able to answer the quick question I've got. With our insurance, because it happened on town right away, through action of somebody we hired to do the work there, with the town's insurance, cover the additional expenses of the injury.
I think that the town's insurance company will provide the defense in the event of a lawsuit. They always do it under what's called a reservation of rights, reserving the right to deny coverage. At the end of the day, I mean, if there's enough defendants in there, you know, somebody's gonna be primarily responsible, and, you know, others may kick in a few bucks to make it go away.
Okay, just as a clarification from a mechanical standpoint, if the culvert did not fail, there was a slight washout behind the head wall on the culvert. So the culvert was fine. We were informed about it. It took us about 2 weeks to get out there. There was a hole about so big, and probably it's possible that someone stepped in there, or could have stepped in there. Anyway, it's been repaired. Driving down the road, it wasn't not visible because of the grass growing. It looked like there was no damage whatsoever there. So it would have been pretty difficult for Public Works to have spotted that.
Okay, which one, the original accident or the new accident? Not from the original accident.
No, the new accident.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
The original accident didn't necessitate a repair. It was
Exactly.
$10,000 repairs.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have questions for the attorney not related to that. Are you done with the rest of your report? Okay, so I've got a question. From our agreement of purchase and sale of water and wastewater system, the one that Debbie sent, I know you got a copy too. It's just our original.
I know of it.
Yeah, well, on page 9, where Debbie directed us with the purple arrow, this is how I'm reading the please, and I'm asking for your advice. So the property owner or developer can go to the city, Palm Bay, the owner of the water rights, and ask or request to hook up. And they can ask that all other property owners must hook up. And it was never put into writing that that they could not do this. Like whoever owns the water rights. I sent this, Debbie, already to you too. So.
Where's paragraph 9? You
Oh,
You referred to a paragraph.
oh, yeah.
Can't comment
Right
on
here.
that.
It's our agreement with the city of Palm Bay. And something else that I was thinking, just on our talk is, so the city of Palm Bay also can sell the water rights, I guess.
There's no mandatory requirement for water hookup.
And
I know that request.
that was something that I insisted on. I
Yeah.
remember that very, very clearly.
Yeah, well-
And the language reflects that.
Well, that's where, can I read that? Or just read there? So, like on the language, it says, the town agrees that the city, which is kind of confusing, so the Malabar agrees that Palm Bay will have the right to expand the water and wastewater systems within the town's corporate limits to serve future customers who request such service.
There you go.
Provided, however, the town shall not be responsible for any costs, so the town of Malabar isn't, with such expansion, and the right to transmit water and wastewater through pipelines located within the town's limits to customers that may exist in the corporate limits. But still, if the customer goes and requests, so what I was reading is, so serve future customers, and the town shall not be responsible for any costs associated. But now the citizens, or their lifestyle, are their out-of-pocket expenses possibly questioned?
If a citizen requests a hookup,
Mhm.
that's the only way it's gonna happen is if the citizen, they're gonna be responsible for paying for the hookup.
Well, what if a business further down from Palm Bay finds out that it's gonna cost so much more for them to go all the way past all these houses? Like go from past Weber and Corey, can they require that each?
No, we've answered that many, many times.
Well, that's why I was like, when I was reading it, I just wasn't getting that, okay.
Yeah, no, they can't.
They can sell a hookup for,
Well, if you want to hook up, you can.
yeah, they can sell it to that person. That's all they do.
Absolutely.
I know when Palm Bay started putting in water lines, that they did require the residents to hook up.
And in Palm Bay, they can make the rules.
Yeah, and our specific agreement says they will not.
They will not, okay.
And it's only upon request of the individual owner.
Because it does say serve future customers, and I was like,
But don't isolate that, because and it's actually more, I think paragraph 5 of that, maybe even more specific.
the city, the Palm Bay agrees to supply existing and future town customers as much potable water necessary to fulfill the water requirements.
And what's the one before that?
Hookups shall only occur either upon request to the city by the property owner or as required by state law.
There's no state law requirement for water hookup.
Okay.
And if there was a state law, there's nothing we could do to change that.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
So it's only, basically,
Okay.
it's only upon request.
So then I have a couple other questions to ask the attorney.
Okay, go ahead.
So, not related to that. So now we've just had our future land use thing. So if this, okay. All right, so this, then I don't really mean that, because that is not so. So so our future land use, we don't need to put anything in to protect our citizens from the wastewater requirements. But is there a way, it's always stated that we are not changing zoning, and if anyone wants to with the future land use map, okay? They can, and it's been stated too in our workshop, that we can keep or sell, the citizen can keep or sell their property under the old zoning. Is this true? Once we,
If we change the comprehensive, the future land use map, pick one, RLC. And their property is zoned, a zoning category that's inconsistent with RLC, they cannot be developed until the zoning and the comprehensive plan are consistent. They can sell it if they want, but.
They can sell it, but they can't keep it under the old zoning.
It stays if they want, if someone wants the issuance of a development order, whether it's a site plan, a plat, or anything like that, we cannot issue a development order until the zoning is consistent with the comp plan. So if it's RLC, the zoning has to have an RLC compatible zoning in order for that development order to be issued.
Now, if they want to develop it can, in their old zoning, that's not RLC,
So
they can't.
It has to be
Yes.
consistent with
Yes.
now, if the comprehensive plan is RLC,
It's an overlay.
oh, I see, I'm
Yes.
not aware of that.
I've been working with the state on this.
Okay.
Okay.
I wasn't
And
aware
that's
of that.
specifically because this council does not want to make both changes at the same time, which is the way to do it properly. So you don't have a conflict between your zoning and your land use map. You call it an overlay. So you have, and I explained this at the workshop, you have a clear emphasis in your narrative that the intent for these corridors that are going to be made RLC on the future land use map are intended for commercial development. And you're embracing commercial development on those corridors. But they will allow your existing land use. If somebody wants to put a single-family home on Malabar Road,
Okay.
they can do that, okay? But they're gonna go in there knowing that the intent of the legislative body was to develop that, looking in the future, to commercial.
And so what I understand is that if they sell that property, and the next owner wants to make it commercial, they can.
They would have to then do what the attorney
Right.
said.
They would
And
petition,
change
there
the
would be a
zoning
public
to be
hearing.
compatible
Right.
with the land use.
Right.
You guys have already changed the land use designation and thus setting the stage for future development. But somebody can buy that and say, I want to put my dream home there, and they would be allowed to do it because
Yes.
this is an overlay,
Right.
okay? But they're gonna go in it knowing,
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I just checking just to make sure. Okay, I got one more. So the yellow flyer anonymous at the January meeting, it appeared that only I believed that this was an illegal flyer. The yellow flyer, the anonymous flyer that went for voting.
Okay.
So, and that this is very important to get to the bottom of this. We cannot have this kind of corruption happening or approved by council. What's your legal advice on that? Is it, I believe it's illegal, but I was the only one, I think, that believed it was an illegal flyer.
When you say illegal, do you believe it violated the election law?
Yeah, I called up the Florida Elections Commission, and they said that it was an illegal flyer. And then I called up to see if the PAC was registered, and it wasn't registered by the state for Brevard County.
So and I don't remember the wrong thing, but it didn't have the paperwork advertisement thing on it or anything like that?
It had a PAC, it said it was a PAC, but the PAC wasn't registered.
All I can tell you is there's certain definite rules and regulations that apply to political ads, okay, and PACs, okay? I'll be honest with you, I didn't analyze it in any respect, but if it didn't meet those requirements, then it would have been an illegal ad. But that being said, you don't know who did it.
Well, I know, but it's just that, you put it under anonymous and say it's free speech. It's not true.
Well, I kind of agree with you there. I mean, there's still, it might be free speech, but there's still rules that apply to the publication of political ads. I mean, you have to have the right requirements on it. And if it didn't, then it's probably an illegal ad, for lack of a better term. But, I have no idea.
Yeah. I just don't think that our council should be supporting it or standing behind it in any way.
I don't know that anybody supports it, but I've heard you bring this up several times. I'd like to know exactly what state statute it violates. I mean, there's gotta be a statute
It says PAC, and it has a little code beside it, but it's not registered.
Okay.
So that's what makes it illegal.
On which state
The
statute?
actual state statute that it's violating, that's what I'd like to know what it is.
Well, we could look that up.
Look it up. You keep bringing it up, I just say, tell me what statute is actually violating. That'll be.
Well, I know that it's because it doesn't, it wasn't registered.
Has to advocate someone, not oppose something else without advocating a particular cause, doesn't it?
There's a bunch of rules on political ads. I mean, I just, that's why the election people are smarter than I am when it comes to that.
A question for the attorney. Even if it, whatever the flyer in question is quote unquote illegal, are there any penalties attached to it?
Well, unless you know who did it, no. It's,
It seems moot then.
but if the council member wants us to look forward, to look at it, and if the council wants to look at it, then we want to look at it.
Anything else, Marty?
No.
Okay. All right, I don't believe we have a sheriff's representative here today, is that correct? All right, so we'll move on to the FDOT presentation.
No,
Good evening again, Vic Petit with Atkins Consulting, working with part of the Department of Transportation. Lena Kuchik is here, she's the department's project manager. This presentation, and I apologize for turning around looking at it because I don't have a copy in front of me tonight, is very similar to what you saw last fall. Have not been, no changes have been made to the concepts that we talked about. So going to the next slide. I'll speak loud enough to be picked up in the microphone. The purpose of the briefing tonight is just to let you know about the project and what status it is now. We're getting ready to go into the public hearing phase of the project. We'll be having a public hearing on February 28th. We're having briefings to Space Coast TPOs, committees, and the board. We've had two of those already, and we'll be briefing the city of Palm Bay next Thursday as well. So, you're familiar with this type of slide. You can move it just a little bit more, thank you. Talking about the major elements of a project development environment study. As part of the overall transportation process, the key elements you can see at the bottom are public development, engineering analysis, and the environmental socioeconomic analysis that goes into it. Tonight we're really at the phase where it says public hearing on the far right, just before that. Okay. The project, again, you know the project, our project in particular goes from Babcock Street to US 1. We're talking about widening to 4 lanes where that's warranted. Proposed bicycle and pedestrian facilities, approximately 3.64 miles in length. The other thing that's important, other than the potential widening, is a proposed access management classification change between I-95 and Weber Road. Today that's classification 3. It will be changed, we're proposing to be going to a 5 to that one section there. Okay.
What's the difference?
The difference, good question. The biggest difference really is in the spacing between median openings or access full intersections. The 5 has stricter requirements on that, or criteria, compared to the 3. And actually from Babcock to Corey will actually be a raised median, as you've probably already seen in the material we sent you before. So that really is why we have to have a classification discussion at all. The raised median requires us to have median openings obviously, at intersections or other locations to allow access to properties along the roadway. The big difference between a 3 and a 5 is that how far apart those openings can be.
So what would US 1 mean from here?
US 1, well, today, from US 1 itself, I'm not sure what US 1 is, but all the way on Malabar Road up to US 1 is considered a class 3. That's what it is today. And then again, the basic difference is how far apart those can be without getting a waiver to the distance.
Couple of questions. You guys have done a tremendous amount of work. And yet a lot of times we keep coming back with some of the same things. From Babcock Street, where basically we start, but not quite, to Quarry Road, you're going to have 2 lanes one way, 2 lanes the other. And I understand the lanes are going to widen from 10 to 12 feet. Is that correct?
The lanes, if you look at the concepts, the lane width between roughly Enterprise Avenue to Weber would be 11 feet wide, the travel lanes. 11 from Weber to Cora would be 12 feet wide. And you may say, well, why is there a difference? Because the department has elected to use a slightly different typical section for that requires the wider lane.
Well, already from Enterprise to Weber's almost done anyhow right now. But I appreciate the amount of work that's been done. The 2 problems I have with the proposals, you're proposing right turn lanes off of Malabar Road onto Weber and onto Corey for those people who are eastbound. I can see that causing confusion among the drivers, both on Weber and Corey and on Malabar Road, who's going where. And I'd be real careful, and this is assuming the roundabouts aren't going to exist with just straight intersections. Roundabouts would take that out of the picture.
Right. And our project actually...
What I would like to see happen, and I know it's a Malabar primary responsibility, but maybe you can help us with it, is right turn lanes for the people northbound out of Weber and Corey trying to go east on Malabar Road. Right now you've got 1 lane, and if somebody's wanting to go west, the people wanting to go east are going to have to wait and get impatient. And that impatience is not a good thing. If we could get some right turn lanes there, so that those people who are wanting to go east and turn right don't have to wait for both the Malabar Road lanes to clear. All they need is the 1 lane clear. They can get out of the way and not run over somebody. And I know I brought this up years ago, and I thought this is what the turn lanes were we were talking about, and then I realized suddenly, no, they're not, because that's a Malabar project, not yours, but maybe you can help us with that if you can. The other question I have is what I call a bottleneck, whether it is or not, I don't know, between Corey Road and Marie Street. You got 4 lanes, 2 lanes, back to 3. And why the 2 lanes? I know you got the disc golf park on one side, you've got Eels property on the other side. I think there's enough room to put the 3rd lane there and go from Corey all the way down to right out here, if you want to be, with 3 lanes. Eastbound, westbound, and whatever you want to be bound. And that to me would make more sense. I know you've got residential driveways and so forth coming off in that area, off of the road. But maybe this would make it a little safer for those people to be turning and not bumped on the way in. I'd like to see that seriously considered. I've asked for that before and it hasn't been, because you're worried about the disc golf park, which is out the part of the development of it. Mr. Vail was here. I don't know if anybody else here was part of clearing up that area, making the park. There were a lot of people. There's enough room there and across the street from Eels. And I'm sure Eels would work with us as well. I would hope, I'm sure. You're smiling, guys. Go to heaven. But let's see if it's possible if we can push that. And keep a straight line so that we're not looking kind of foolish by having that bottleneck there.
We did develop, in response to the resolution from town council, that you preferred either 2 lanes or 3 lanes to that area. It goes back probably over.
Well, that was the resolution you wrote and asked us to approve.
No, not that one. You sent us the
About a year ago?
resolution. Well, it's more than a year ago, I think.
Okay.
We asked you to tell us your preferences.
I, as a councilman, would have difficulty voting to approve a 2-lane for that section. But I'm only one of
Yeah.
a lot of people.
Well, again, the resolution included both those options. We looked at both those options, 2-lane, or with a shared use path, or the 3-lane section. And we presented that to the department. The preference was to go stay with the 2-lane with the shared use path concept. So a lot of it had to do with the development, or lack of development in that area for a 3-lane urban railway section. Yes, sir.
Victor, just out of curiosity, and I know FDOT or someone has done a lot of traffic studies, obviously, to derive these plans, but as you travel from the west to the east, what's the difference in traffic loading as you come past Weber and come past Corey? Does it decrease or increase?
It actually decreases as you come from Babcock to the east. It actually does decrease gradually.
By what percentage?
I don't have the percentage off the top of my head, but we actually looked at that. And during the course of our study, which is gone probably 2 years longer than originally planned, we asked the department to reforecast the traffic for us to get more up to date. They even extended it 5 more years into the future to see if we look at 5 years further, do we need to have additional widening from Corey to the east? The result was still really in an area where we couldn't make a case to acquire right-of-way and impact yields and the disc golf park on the basis of just traffic.
That's the justification from going from a 4-lane to essentially a 2-lane.
Right. We are, which if you like, I can keep going and share with, or I can keep it short and just answer your questions. Either way, I'm happy either way.
Why don't you go through your prepared presentation?
Okay.
I'm sure we'll interrupt you.
Again, apologize for turning my back.
No?
This is a little bit of an eye chart. And what we do during the process is a fairly standard set of criteria that all projects that go through this process are evaluated by. That's there for your information. I'm not going to read through this. So it looks at the purpose and the need for the project, the engineering analysis, the environmental impacts, and those kind of things, and costs. The next slide or next page are what we term unique considerations. I'm not going to read through that, but you just stated some of those. And that was the potential impact to the Eels property, the Malabar Scrub Sanctuary, the fact that that process will require, and we are impacting it even with our best efforts to reduce that impact in the footprint of the roadway. We are having a slight impact, but we've cut that down to a total about a quarter of the Scrub Sanctuary property of less than 1 acre, 0.85 acres. And we have met with the Selection and Management Committee with our Eels, and they have supported that, the concept we're talking about. The only caveat they have is when it goes to a design, which is now scheduled for fiscal year 2022, that they be coordinated with throughout the design process. It will require going to state level, to FDEP, as spelled out up there, and getting permission to acquire or to use that property. And that's a long process. The state has elected to do that during design because there's such a long time gap between this study being completed and that design starting. And that also actually applies to this golf course because of the way it was funded. The purchase of the land was funded through state fund as well. So it's regulated by ARC. So the big challenge we had really with respect to that had to do with those two properties overall. Okay. Okay, so just a short summary of what the alternative includes. In the segments labeled number 1, Enterprise Avenue to Corey Road, we pick up where it's multi-lane now, coming from Babcock, and it'll be 4 lanes in each direction, all the way to Corey Road, as you can see in the typical section drawings. From Corey to Marie Street, the decision was made to Initially, we were talking about not doing anything to the roadway, adding a shared use path. However, after more conversations, discussion here in the county and with the town, we've decided to reconstruct that roadway up to current standards, which are better geometrically and safer geometrically, gives wider paved shoulders, and it'll be better from a drainage perspective as well. The shared use path at one time was on the south side of the roadway. You asked us in your same resolution to move it to the north. We've moved it to the north side, and it does make better connection between the trailhead crossing at Marie Street all the way down to the town park, and then go to Corey and connect into a sidewalk system there. So it will make that connection with those facilities and the trail that does go into the scrub sanctuary. So we went in that direction from Marie to S1. It is the 3-lane section we talked about. It will have one lane in each direction and with a center lane that could be used for access to properties for turns. It also includes bike lanes, provision for bike lanes in each direction and sidewalks in each direction. So it kind of goes down to those bullets down below where we provide for bicycles and pedestrians throughout the length of the corridor now, as opposed to in segments. And that's a real focus of the Department of Transportation as they look at new facilities and reconstruction is to add those facilities, so we've been able to do that. One piece we added in here is if you, I'm sure you're aware of it, but there's a bike lane on the eastbound side of Malabar Road. It ends at Babcock Street, and it's shown by the green line between Babcock and Enterprise. We're actually going to be able to extend that all the way up to where this project technically starts. So that bike lane will be in the eastbound directions added. I mentioned the access management, and of course, potential pond sites, which I know are much discussion about those, and we've had a lot of discussions with staff here and others about those pond sites. Those are for planning purposes and are going to be reevaluated as it goes into design. Even with what we have here today, there's probably ways that can be refined, which I think may be more desirable in some cases for those on the committee, on the council, and perhaps others. But that's not something we can do based on the information we have right now, because we don't have all the geometric, horizontal, and vertical information, and all the soils information that are needed to do that. So we have a good representation of what those are. The access management, I've talked about this already, really. Currently, the entire corridor is classification 3. And we're talking about changing to a 5 from I-95 to Weber. For those who really look at numbers and get into details, there's a chart there that talks about what those what the openings will be potentially, what the distance is between those. I just brought down tonight, if you are interested in looking in detail at 16 different documents we have for the project. I wrote this down tonight, and we'll leave those here at Town Hall. They're for public display between now and March the 12th, as required by regulations. And those will be left here for the town for citizens or anyone else to come in and look at. So, again, we've talked a bit about this already, but what we call typical section between Enterprise and Weber is 4 lanes, 2 lanes, travel lanes in each direction, the bike lane, sidewalks, and then a gradual sloping out to existing properties, and that's to prevent having runoff from the highway going into adjacent properties, but it's also to help take runoff from the adjacent properties over to a cross drain or down to where it can flow without flooding. So that's what that section is. Next one. The alignment of that basically starts off on the north side of the existing alignment, goes a little bit to the south as it gets about halfway in that segment, and approaches a roundabout at Weber Road. And there's additional right-of-way, as you can guess, required throughout the right-of-way there. It's not wide enough for the widening to take place without acquisition. That next segment is slightly different, as I mentioned. It has 12-foot travel lanes, it has paved shoulders, and it does have sidewalk It's not curb and gutter on the outside, it's curb and gutter on the inside of that. And again, this was a design consideration decision made by the department for this particular section. Still provides 4 lanes and an improvement over conditions we have today. And the speed limit is 50, which is consistent with what we're looking at.
Actually, I believe the council supports 45 mile an hour speed limit.
The 45 to Corey,
All the way.
yeah, just up to Corey, I couldn't call us back to that. This is what the concept would be. It doesn't go over 50, but it stays at 50. The alignment here, again, continues out of the roundabout on the south. You'll notice that, you know, the Malabar Scrub Sanctuary, the green property, which stays on the south side of that, and as we move to the east, we do get up into that property, kind of balance out between the impacts on the north and the south side of the roadway. It stays there until it reaches a potential roundabout at Corey Road. So, next one. The roundabouts that we talked about in a lot of detail last time I was here, to give you an idea of why the department does that. It's part of their standard process for evaluating improvements at intersections anytime there's construction. And it's really a safety aspect more than anything else. It's safety and operational. And from the town's perspective, it does help with some traffic control measures you're interested in.
Yeah, excuse me, let me just interject too, Dick. This addresses the right versus left turn issues as well. There's only one lane going out of the roundabouts.
Yeah, there's at the Weber Road, there'll be 2 lanes that continue through the roundabout for Weber. Right now, they're looking at 1 lane continuing through at Corey. Yes, sir.
Well, actually, I was talking about the entrance from Weber.
Yes. Yes. And again, this is different from the intersection improvement projects that are being done now and will be constructed well in advance of what this is.
I have a question for you. It's okay.
Go ahead. Actually, if you come to the podium, introduce yourself for the record.
It's okay.
Well, I might be able to ask that, because Jeff and I talked about this earlier today. My wife and I were leaving here, unfortunately, 5 o'clock the other evening. Wanted to go westbound on Malabar Road, okay, from Corey. After an unbelievable amount of time, I realized I'm not going to be able to clear both lanes of traffic. So I turned eastbound, go down to the post office, turn in there, and then turn around and go westbound on Malabar, okay? All right, I've got a couple of questions. What timeline are we talking about, Vic, before we get this resolved?
Well, for this design, okay, this concept, I can't speak to what the intersection improvements are going to be, what that timeline is. This one, as you'll see, is kind of like near the end of the slides. We have our public hearing into this month, approval of the concept by the state in June, and design is scheduled for fiscal year 2022.
And construction.
Right-of-way acquisition and construction are not funded right now, so they're not scheduled.
And you also have to remember that it is number 6
So this is still
in the
pie in the sky.
on the
I'm sorry.
Space Coast
Yeah.
priority list. So you have 6 other projects ahead of you.
Okay, and so it's just because we were going to Viera that night, and I do anything I can to avoid that traffic circle in Viera, okay? They got a little sign posted there that you have to stop and get out and read so you know how to navigate this thing, okay? All right, I didn't do that, so I just threw caution to the wind and charged anyway, okay? All right, so what I'm asking is, the scenario I just described to you, okay, can you show me how that traffic circle is going to help me turn westbound on Malabar without having to do what I did the other night? I'm coming off of Corey. I'm going northbound on Corey. Can you just show me how am I going to be able to get through that any easier than I do
I
now?
believe that we posted a link on your website to the function of the roundabout.
Yeah.
You gotta shut your eyes and.
Besides,
Whatever
that
here.
would be able to do what needs to be done, so.
We can't hear you.
So I'll have to go to that and read it again. You don't want to
It's
tell me.
video, it shows you the
Okay.
whole thing, yeah.
I will say this, that the biggest difference will be as people approach a roundabout is a major speed reduction
Yes.
requirement. And that's gonna create a spacing gap in those cars, give you an opportunity to make the movement out northbound and continue around the roundabout circle till you go west.
So-
The biggest advantage is what we call deflection moving forward. That roundabout actually will slow cars down.
Yeah.
So today, it's just a straight shot, as you point out to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had one, building in, State Road 44, Grand Avenue,
Can't hear you.
where a family of 6 was killed. So they built the roundabout to the proper standards, and it works beautifully. I mean, I use it every time I go see my mother, because that's the route I go.
I can see where it would actually reduce, obviously, for the
Yeah.
fatality accidents just by the reduction in speed.
And I've never.
But is there that much of a reduction in traffic accidents themselves?
Yes. And the main reason is it reduces the number of conflict points. I think it actually cuts in half the number of conflict points between vehicles, and also the same thing for pedestrians.
And I won't bug you after this one other point. Is this the same presentation you're going to give at Palm Bay on
Yes.
February 28th?
No, yes, okay, that's going to be public hearing. It'll actually be much more detailed and longer presentation.
But it's the same plan.
Same plan, yes, yes. Everything at this point is set as we move to the public hearing. Public hearing is again to get more information, input from the public, of course. And then we take all that and consider that input.
And I'd just like to point out, Steve, the reason they're having it there is they didn't think we had capacity here. So,
And this is one of the reasons why we come again to you guys. So
These look at much
people-
smaller roundabouts than what I grew up with on Hollywood Boulevard in Hollywood 520. There's several roundabouts. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not familiar with those. I know that historic around.
City Hall's in the middle of one of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
There used to be a military academy in the middle of another one, but now it's just a big office.
I grew up in Miami.
You know Hollywood Boulevard, yeah. And they don't ever have accidents on those. There might somebody bump a little bit aside if they get in the wrong lane and don't pay attention, but those are safe. And your experience here, you turn right, and just keep going around the circle rather than go to the post office.
yeah, right.
Excuse me, a citizen, a resident wanted to make a comment. Please come to the podium.
Jim Ralston, 2480 Malabar Road, 4 million miles driving, safe tractor trailer truck. I've been in roundabouts in the whole United States. I have not found one roundabout that flows traffic effectively. Number one, when you have the road amount of traffic that you have rush hour on Malabar Road, you have a steady stream of traffic going eastbound in the morning. They're going to come in at a roundabout, they're going to go out of the roundabout, in and out of the roundabout, in and out, in and out, in and out. If you don't get a break in that chain, you don't get an opening, you're not going to get in the roundabout. You're going to sit there, just like you're sat, and you're going to sit there until somebody grants you the right of way. Okay? Now, you got trucks coming down through there. We all have troubles with roundabouts unless you make them humongous. We're going to enter it, car's going to be on our right, they're going to get squished, or we're going to push them down, or they're going to slam on their brakes. I'm going to be climbing over the center divider curve to keep my trailer out of the gutter. Roundabouts do not work. Roundabouts are being taken out in Pennsylvania and in New Jersey right now as we speak. I can show you pictures of Route 13 in Pennsylvania where it's happening. If you do not get a break in the traffic flow by a traffic control device, a traffic light, you're going to have a steady flow of traffic. You've got to break the flow of traffic. And if nobody grants you the right of way, the roundabout is doing nothing. And that's just my point. Without a traffic control to stop the traffic, to allow you to make your turn either way you want to go, the traffic is going through that roundabout, and unless you have a break in that opening of traffic, you're not going to merge in there any easier. And if people go fast, they don't want to grant you the right of way. Okay? So I'm just telling you, from my experience, 4 million miles driving in the United States without an accident, thank you. Traffic roundabouts, in my opinion, are dangerous for four-wheelers and trucks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next section is Corey and Marie. We talked about already the 2 lanes section there, 2 travel lanes, 1 in each direction. We do have the wide paved shoulders there, and to the north, on the north side, the multi-use path, shared use path. Keep using that old phrase. Okay, next, roughly shows the alignment. You can go up just a little bit more, thank you. As you're coming out of that roundabout, we are going to the south, we are going to the post office, and then we come back north, and we're trying to thread between this golf park and the scrub sanctuary, and we are impacting some of both. And Nico will say this, the impact of this golf park will not affect the park's playability or parking. There still will be both the parking that's there today as well as playability, no impact to the layout of the course. And the amount of impact to the scrub sanctuary, again, has been approved by the Selection and Management Committee in that area. We do move off that as soon as possible, and we hold that northern railway line all the way up to Marie Street, where we widen for turn lanes on Marie Street. And the final section, coming closer to Town Hall here, is that 3-lane section we talked about. The posted speed on that section is 35 miles per hour. 1 travel lane in each direction. And here, because the posted speed is lower, the width of those lanes can be 11 feet instead of 12 each. That saves us a couple of feet in right-of-way acquisition activity through there. Sidewalks and space for bikes as well. Next. And that alignment basically goes down the center of the existing roadway. The intersection at US 1, we are adding turn lanes there, eastbound, northbound, and southbound. You know what's there today, so that intersection should operate well for the future based on our projections. And it is signalized, as you already know. Next. Okay, so cost estimates, as someone pointed out to me earlier today, when you look at the right-of-way cost versus the total of the project, it's high, but that's what we're seeing in today's environment because of the amount of right-of-way required on this project and for all-site drainage as well. So right now, these numbers are subject to change over time because these are based on 2017 values, unit costs or costs per items that are used for long-range estimates by the department. But this is the cost of the project. I mentioned this a moment ago, schedule and funding, public hearing, February 28th. The state approval of our, what we call the State Environmental Impact Report in June. And then funding for design and final engineering in 2022. And then, as I noted, the drive acquisition and construction is not funded currently just because of the process of getting to those money that far out in the future. Typically doesn't go that far out beyond 2022. So, and then, of course, we've talked a bit about the intersection improvements at Corey and Weber, which is a different project from our. I always put this in so to remind you that this is not our project. Our project doesn't affect that one, or vice versa, really. We do take into consideration what they're going to have there, and we looked at actually in final design to see what the longevity of that is, and could improvements be made to those before going to roundabouts. So it's not set in concrete yet. We're going to get out 4 years from now, 5 years from now, to see how those intersections are functioning. And I think that's the last one, other than to just indicate our contact information. As always, we are in the process. This week we'll actually be uploading 16 documents to the website that have not been there before. As I also noticed here for public viewing as well, that I'll go to the website for those who want to see the whole paper. So that they'll be uploaded. The other information about the project is up to date now, new information. There's still old information there as well. We have new information that's up to date about our community. So we appreciate, frankly, let me say, I've been coming and meeting with the council for at least 2 years, maybe 3 years. I've kind of lost track at a certain point. It's been nothing but, frankly, open and honest and kind to me, sharing your opinions, and I appreciate that, and I've done the best I can to give you some of the reasons why we have gone down the path we're on. I appreciate your input even tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions, Mr. Cote? Anyone? Okay.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right, we'll move along to the board and committee reports. Let's see, Drew, do you have anything for trails?
Yes, I do.
Greenways?
Evening, members of council. I'll be brief, but we've had a lot going on lately. As you all know, we basically had some major events, and last week, I would say for the town of Malabar, for the town of Malabar, it's basically been a huge week for transportation. The week started out with BPTAC, which I'm a member of, represent the town. I heard Mr. Petit there with the DOT presentation, and it was really a lot of things that the people challenged there were similar concerns, but basically a lot of the trail modality type things. And this plan has come a long way, I have to say that. Just to give you kind of a heads up before the end of the month DOT review, to give you an idea of the BPTAC, the folks there were pretty impressed with what they've seen change over time. We're encouraged with the idea that we may have some EEL coordination so that we have a contiguous paved trail system to the north of Malabar. Huge value there. I kind of emphasize this because a couple other things I was going to mention. Again, last week was a huge week for transportation. Kind of started out with BPTAC. We then had our own event in the town of Malabar. We had our ADA restroom grand opening, our Royal Flush, put together very well by the town. Thank you, Doug, and your folks there. And very well attended. We had actually representation from both the state, the county, the town, local people, different clubs, different folks that have been involved from day one, and those that want to get involved in the future. So kind of a major event, very well represented for participation by a lot of folks that are interested. I think the key thing I took from it, I think we all learned stuff. We had actually a person from Tallahassee, from FDEP, the Department of Parks and Recreation, OGT, Office of Greenways and Trails. That individual, Christine Small, basically kind of let us know something new that I had never heard of, and I was very excited to hear about it because I think it's kind of the missing thing. So much of the town is EEL property not taxed. We've had our concerns expressed that at length. But basically the concept being that if we could get some eco-tourism, I almost said terrorism, eco-tourism, I don't know where my head is at, but if we could get some ecotourism, obviously some of what has been a problem for the town could turn out to be a huge blessing for the town. Those of us that get outside and enjoy it, we have a lot of great things with our trail system and greenways. But the concept being that this town may be in the future considered a Florida trail town, I think is what they're calling it. They have a new program. I think we're all kind of lit up when we heard that, because of all towns that need to be recognized for our trails, hey, why not? Because they're then connecting to your surrounding communities. They're wanting their restaurants recognized on the trail system, the hotels, the equestrian, the bike shops, et cetera, et cetera. So this was a huge thing to see about. I did look at it, there's an application thing, and I was going to seek the council's approval to proceed with the Trails and Greenways Committee to fill out the application. As far as I can tell, there's no obligation, there's no risk. But to see what's involved with getting us recognized as that, and before we sign anything formal that might have some things that Carl may warn us about, we'll make sure that we're in good shape there before we sign. But I'm thinking it sounds like exactly what we're looking for to help us progress and plan with ecotourism so that we remain rural residential but get the biggest bang out of our great greenway system. So that was someone learned at the Royal Flush. But wait, the week did not stop there. Thursday, found myself in Cape Canaveral. Danny was there as well. Tremendous. I got a lot out of it. I think he did too. I think they'll tell you a little bit more about it this evening here. But basically, what I learned was that this county is a combination of high-tech and kind of environmental. We're not the only ones thinking that. The rest of the county seems to be tuned into the concept that if we can take our parks, our trail systems, the green that we've got, and kind of
bring that high tech best as we can. There's all kinds of neat ways to kind of go quiet, where you're not paying somebody to watch it. It's self-contained, self-parking. There's certain things that are huge, including what we saw open up was basically a borrow a bike program that's now live in Cape Canaveral that launched that day. But we had a huge, very interesting presentation from a National Geographic individual that actually went on the transportation system, public transportation virtually from Washington, D.C. all the way to Antarctica. He did have to hop a boat with his bus, but basically, with very few exceptions, he was able to use mass transit in very rural, very questionable areas. I thought he was crazy, but he did it, and he got there, and it was amazing. And the idea of what we take for granted with transportation, with a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of connectivity, we too can be kind of state-of-the-art and yet still remain rural residential. So as I kind of lead from there, I'm thinking the importance of planning is something we need to talk about as a town and kind of move forward with the connectivity. We have some plans. I know that our committee's going to be talking to Doug with regard to the Atz Road and Marie, potentially doing another trailhead there, taking a look at what we can do. There's a tremendous amount of recreational area in the Jordan Scrub between Marie Street and Route 1. People have no idea unless they've been out there. There's two nice lakes. There's some huge things that I think most of the town of Malabar would love to know about. We've got a great place here, and I think with a little bit more connectivity and working things out, a little bit of investment, but more or less, most of it's planning, we're going to do a great job of growing the town in the future. So next week's meeting, we will probably be talking about that. And I just wanted, again, to get your nod so we could move forward on at least filling out the application, present it to the town before we send it in, but basically take that level. If it's something the town's interested, the application we're referencing is the Florida Trail Towns concept. If we can take a look at maybe participating in that. I think what it would do is put us on the map. And then some of our local businesses may be more willing to help us with our infrastructure and support. Instead of it all being tax-based or volunteer-based, I think there's some economic mutual benefit that would occur. And the hotels would love to have people come in and do a bike trail or horses or something like that. So I can see that as happening in the future, and I thought it would make sense for the town to pursue that through its Trails Committee, was seeking a nod from the TCI.
So, Drew, I would ask you, are there any responsibilities or requirements for the town? Basically any money that we would have to spend if we move forward with that?
Agreed. That was my concern. My cursory look at the form, unless there's some deeper things, we're not committing any monetary things from that. There's nothing where we have to participate. It wasn't a grant per se. They do have access to more grants once you're into that. So I think if anything, I'm not sure what our participation level would be. It's usually an 80-10-10 scenario. But again, I don't think we're signing on any dotted line. And we would fill it out, present it to the town. I don't know if it's something that Carl would need to take a look at. That's something council might have to decide. But it looks pretty innocuous to me. It's just they're trying to get towns that want to kind of participate. It referenced Dunedin, and I've not been there, and some of you all may have, but apparently the town changed from 30% occupancy in its hotel system to 100% once they went through this and kind of got it all going. So the concept that I see locally is we have a few HOAs. I'm very involved in one of them to the north, but you have other HOAs that are tagged to this system that are actually concatenated or back up to it. Future paved paths connecting to the Al-Tuttle paved trail system could ultimately up the property values for everybody. Because then everybody's hooked to the cool trail system, et cetera, et cetera. It's one more amenity you put on your website. So at any rate, I see good things. It was a good week for the town, because from what I can see, the county's going the same direction we want to go. They recognize not every town's the same, and the state is looking at the idea that this might be cool to have some towns that stay rural residential and really still push their trail system. So that's my say.
All right. So, does the council have any objections to going forward with the application if it's not committing any funds?
No. Yeah.
I've got my nod. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Drew.
Drew.
Thank you. All right, any other?
Let me ask you a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
And I don't know the answer. One of the concerns that we're aware of is continuing the trail to the south, connect with us coming out of Grant Buck area, Leghorn, Main Street area. How about to the north? Where do we go?
To the north, we're looking at a couple things. What's happened, the city of Palm Bay actually owns Turkey Creek Sanctuary and manages it. And it's also managed partially through some EEL cooperation there. But there's also parkland basically along the tangent of the power line system coming from Malabar Road going north. There's a potential trail path there that's park property. Okay, so there may be another opportunity west of the Malabar Scrub West area for another trail going up that way or through there. Taking it north, you already have basically Turkey Creek system going north across basically the rec center a little bit north of that. And there's again, the power line that cuts across the Tillman will take you on basically a paved path almost, I guess it takes you to Troutman, almost to Palm Bay Road, because it's going past the Harris office building now. So you've got, from there, you could actually, and what I'm envisioning is borrow a bike scenario. You'd actually have people going by bike to work all the way from Valcaria through this whole system. That's what I'm envisioning. From these HOAs, from these communities, and actually from Malabar itself, if we can get the right, basically connectors going. But the huge thing, I'm very optimistic with the FDOT idea that they're looking at the north. We've been pushing the north side for the multimodal trails within the State Road 514 concept, the PD&E. It looks like they actually have listened and made some accommodations, including the Murray Street equestrian crossing. So, going north, I'm not sure after Palm Bay. I do know our committee's talked about suggesting to Palm Bay some routes that would take you to the good landing. There's a boat ramp in Palm Bay on Turkey Creek, but basically paralleling the railroad tracks, there's enough property along there that could be. So we're looking at traditional ideas of if you have basically a drainage system, a railroad, or basically power line. Can we borrow that and kind of incorporate it in? I do see possibly going north, because I know we go across town west.
Years ago, when I came here, this town was pretty much known for its trails, among other things. And one of the things I looked into was a concept referred to then as a linear trail that would have been all up and down the east coast of the country. But I haven't heard much about that in several years, and maybe that's out of date.
It is not at all. There's a linear trail system. We're part of the South Brevard linear trail system. The Alpine Trail is a recognized component of that. And there's actually, in the original documentation we have in the grant, there are references to it going all the way to the St. Sebastian State Preserve. So connecting really through Brevard County along the coast. Titusville is now about to connect, and in the process basically of doing some huge things, including pedestrian bridges over roadways and going out to the island, 2 park systems there. But they're connecting to the Cross Florida bike path. And I think Murray mentioned that at the opening there. But the thing with that is a tremendous amount of influx of dollars, ecotourism. And we are having something too in Palm Bay that will light up a little bit with the town. And that is the bike park, basically the mountain bike park that's really being created by BMBA through cooperation with the city of Palm Bay. They are very close to having a tangent recognized that's going to take from Babcock. And you heard the gentleman tonight from DOT talk about improving the connector to Babcock. And they weren't going to do that. They're going to redo Babcock and Malabar Road connections with the multimodal. That would take you up to basically what they call the Grapefruit Trail. The Grapefruit Trail then along the Tillman would connect you to Turkey Creek on the south shore of the Turkey Creek, those of you that are familiar with that, which then takes you all the way down to us with very little, you're crossing Briar Creek Boulevard at one point. I mean, it's amazing how much open area we would have access to, contiguous, including paved paths. And that's kind of where I see the town going in the future. So I was encouraged with it.
The linear trail idea from way up to way down.
It's very much coming together piece by piece.
Yeah. Still in the future, we are a part of it.
We are part of it.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other committee chairs? Looks like no. Okay, Chief.
Evening, everybody. I want to thank the council for participating in the firehouse sub grant. I hope you all had fun. Do we have any more pictures then?
Oh, yeah, I got one.
All right, here we go. This is part of what happened at the fire station with the firehouse subs. The person there's Lieutenant Barkley, Mike Kelly. He's the foundation founder, one of the representatives. The Mia Menek, he is actually the store owner from Firehouse Subs at Henry Lane. So he was the one that sponsored us to get the tool. And then the heavyset guy ran. What'd you think of it?
That was a blast.
Was that fun?
That was fun.
How, was the tool heavier than I thought it would be?
Well, I mean, I carry 50-pound bags of duck feed,
Okay.
but I don't hold them out like this. So yeah, it was heavy. I think that tool weighed, what, 48 pounds?
48 pounds. Yep. Next one. All right, that's Tom. Who we have with him? That's you again. I'll get up there again, man.
Yeah.
Mr. Grant, and then Ms. Mahoney. Next one.
She doesn't want to carry it.
She did it. Did you carry it all the way over
I
there?
did.
Okay. This is the fire department, Mr. Bell. That's a resident, Ms. Keller, Hooker, JC, one of my lieutenants. David Pang, my engineer. That's Weymouth, he's one of the volunteers, and Christine Smith, another one of the driver engineers with the fire department. And this is the tools. This is the hydraulics that we received from Firehouse Subs. $30,000 worth of tools. So it was a wonderful grant that we received.
Taxpayers in Malabar, thank you.
We were happy to do it for the taxpayers. All right. There you are. She actually cut the hard side. Instead of on the bottom, she only cut the high side of the post. That was pretty wrong of you guys, giving her the high side,
Janine's gonna print souvenir pictures for you guys.
Did y'all take a piece of the car home by any chance?
He gave it to you.
Yeah, okay. I know you said he was gonna give it to y'all. So,
You just cut a
That's
piece
it.
off.
that's it. Well, thank you again for all coming.
Mike, I want to thank you and everybody who was involved in that. You did great community service there.
Well, thank you very much. And we're not done. Thank you. We've actually, Lieutenant Hooker and Lieutenant Weldon have actually requested that and got that started for us. I want to thank the residents that came out and supported the fire department.
I was working.
Yeah, okay. Selling parts. Okay. Yeah. We're also receiving another grant that we got, the Scott Air Packs. It's a $38,000 grant that we got. They will be shipped out tomorrow. So that's another free grant. We do have the 50/50 grant from Forestry that we received today. We got confirmation today of that. It gives us bunker gear. We are getting 8 sets of bunker gear, and we paid $8,000, or it would be $16,000. We have another one that's going out for more bunker gear and hose for a total of $40,000, and we're only paying $20,000. So more grants. We're also looking at another grant that we found today. Gary Shimes. I got a foundation, Lieutenant Dan. You all remember Lieutenant Dan? Well, he has a foundation, and it's for firefighters and emergency service personnel. We are looking at it's a fit test for our masks. We have to fit test every firefighter for our masks. The grant, for us to do it every year, is anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000. So the grant that we put it out for is $9,354. So we applied for that one today. We're also applying for another grant. This grant is through HUD and AFG. It's a $1.4 million grant. It's for a new City Hall combination fire station. With the council's permission, I'd like to proceed on that starting tomorrow. So, and that, we're not sure if it's a 50/50, where everything we're reading is showing 100% grants. So that's what we're doing. We're looking for 100% grants from here to the end of the year. Our goal is $2 million this year for grants. That's what our goal as the fire department is to get for the town of Malabar. So that's where our goal is. Again, all I need y'all's permission to do this.
Okay, any objections? No. You have a request?
Thank you.
I'd
All
like to
right.
say something, Tim, before you leave.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you still have stuff to say?
I have a little bit more.
Go ahead.
One more grant. We just received today confirmation from the state fire marshal that we received a grant for cancer, carcinogen, decon kits. They told us today we got the grant. They didn't give us a price, but they said for every vehicle we have, we will get a kit for. So we're looking at 7 kits. That's a free kit. That's free also. So that's another grant that we received today.
And so that can be a positive impact for the health of
For-
the volunteers.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Exactly what is it, Mike?
It's a decon kit for cancer. If you go into a fire, any carcinogens that you're getting, it decons you right as soon as you get out of the fire. So, and the state, once we use them, the state, we tell them we used it, we submit another one. So it's an ongoing grant for the state of Florida. And I have him, fire marshal, fire department. So, yes, ma'am.
I wrote this before all of that, and I'm sure we all just thank you for doing all that work to find these things. But I just, from the power tool thing, I just was, thank you for always giving a report in writing. It's been nice, and it would be nice to see all the departments do this as well. And especially like the way Lieutenant Dan Barkley, you know, he met with the firehouse subs manager and worked out the grant and took the time, and obviously it looks like you're still doing more of that for new equipment over a period of time. This was done really well. And the way I believe we should be working with our community instead of using taxpayers' funds, except for the bare minimum. And I just really thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We'll continue to do that. We will continue.
Very good.
You're more welcome. Now, I've got the report if everybody wants to know how many runs we ran. From 12:19 or 12:29 to 1:04, we ran 10 calls, 4 EMS calls, 1 vehicle accident with injury, 1 vehicle accident without injury, 1 power line down, 1 public service call, on 1 unauthorized burn, and 1 dispatch cancellation. From 1:05 to 1:11, 6 EMS calls, 1 cancel in a route call, 1 control burn, 1 cancel on scene. And if anybody would like these, I'd be more than happy to print them out. Yes, sir.
Do you have any breakdown, Mike, of the hours and the fuel or anything that you?
And I can break that down if you want. I mean,
We used to do a report years ago. And I just wondered.
right. I mean, I can break down your hours, man hours. That's by time. I can get you the time. Fuel.
Secretary does most of that, right? Or some of it.
All myself.
Or you,
Correct.
because I used to.
If you guys want, come by the station. I'll give you a copy of everything I have here.
Thank you.
So it's public record. You're more than welcome to have it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're doing a good job.
Well, thank you. Where we at? Okay. From 119 to 125, 7 EMS calls, 3 motor vehicle accidents with injuries, 1 motor vehicle without injury, 1 public assist, 1 dispatch cancel, and 1 control burn. The year to date, which again, I'll be more than happy to hear everybody. EMS calls are up 53% compared to last year, just year to date. Vehicle accidents with injuries, 13%. Vehicle accidents without injuries, 3%. Hazardous condition calls, we're only up 3%. That's typical. I'll give you a breakdown on that if you want to know what those are also. Power line down, we have 1 call, we're up 3% so far this year. Dispatch canceled, we're up 16%. They're canceled us more calls, which is fine. Authorized control burns, we're up 5%. That's my report for this meeting. Any questions?
I wanted to ask you something
Yes.
just to clarify for me. The Firehouse Subs Foundation,
Yes, sir.
okay, as I understood it, is total contributions.
Correct.
Okay,